Mm-hmm.
Okay. Imagine that you're laying in a hospital bed and you know that you're soon about to die. Your family's around you, and the doctor's pretty much giving you a really slim chance to live, but there's still hope. My question is, would you fight that little bit to live your life as it is? And it's troubling because a lot of people are starting to choose to not live and to go with physician-assisted suicide in places where it's legal. Now, physician-assisted suicide, as defined by euthanasia.com, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, it's suicide by means of pills or injection that are prescribed by a doctor. So, basically, you decide you don't want to live anymore, the doctor will prescribe you drugs, you can go home, take the pills, and you'll eventually pass away. And there's a few states in America where this is legal. It's in Oregon and Montana, for example, it's legal, and foreign countries, including the Netherlands and Denmark. Now, today, I'm going to argue that physician-assisted suicide is not the best alternative for terminal illness because it promotes a culture of death. It's not as harmless as it seems, and people hold a false belief that they have the right to choose when they die. And it'll also prevent an alternative process from physician-assisted suicide or PAS. So let's start with the culture of death. When I say a culture of death, I mean one where people would rather die than instead of live. So, in most religions, and mine included, the afterlife is glorified. It's supposed to be awesome and great, and even if you're not religious, you see its appeal to where it's like a loving supernatural figure keeps you all safe and happy, but none of it's really guaranteed. And it's hard to say when you move on, where do we go? And it's becoming one of those things to where people just want to die just to see what happens. And in my thing with physician-assisted suicide is they're making dying and you choosing to die normal. And the problem is when you take something that's banned and make it okay, people start to try it, and the more people that try it, it becomes a social norm. And I don't want to live in a world where it's normal to, when you get a bad diagnosis from a doctor, that your first inclination is to take your life. And we see this in Oregon because every year since 1997 when it was legalized, the rate of physician-assisted suicides have doubled. So it went from a number of like 4 in the first year, and then it doubled to 8, and then it kept going to 16, and then it just kept doubling to the point where today it's at over 1,000. And more people are choosing this way out of the world. Another misconception is that it's harmless because people tend to glorify this when they're presenting it. The doctors it sounds like a great idea. It's, you're gonna be free from suffering and free from pain, and you're just gonna take these pills and you're gonna slowly pass away. But sometimes that's not the case. In 10% of cases that it's happened in Oregon, there's been major side effects with the drugs, and these side effects include excessive gasping, muscle spasms, dementia, feelings of panic and terror, and sometimes assaultive behavior. And there's actually a story where there was a man who was in Oregon, and he had requested the drugs, and his wife was there to comfort him while he was dead, and sit by his bedside. And as he took the drugs, he went and he was sitting there, and it was one of his last pills. He then got up and started swinging and actually almost knocked his wife out. And one of the neighbors luckily heard and had to call 911, and they had to bring him and her to the hospital for medical treatment. So it's not as safe and harmless as everybody's making it seem. So also now I'm going to get to the false right to die. So a lot of people think that, you've heard it. You've heard the song, "It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To." People are thinking, to simplify this, it's my body and I'll die if I want to. So They think that people in this state believe, you know what, I'm suffering, I'm going through this, I don't want to fight, I want to die, and they choose this. But suicide is against the law. And it's according to they're trying to make this legal in California, physician-assisted suicide. There was actually just a bill passed that is going to put it on the ballot in the next election. And I use California because according to Section 401 of the California Penal Code, suicide and aiding suicide is illegal. So by me saying I have a right to die by suicide is the same thing as me saying, well, I have the right to stand on the corner and sell drugs, because it's against the law, but people are saying that they have a right to do it, but it's against the law. So it's not a rights thing. It's just something that's illegal that you can't do. And to present an alternative for physician-assisted suicide, there is hospice care, which as defined by WebMD, is keeping someone who is terminally ill comfortable with pain medication and stuff like that until they pass away. But they keep them in the hospital as opposed to sending them home. And this was something that I've seen in my life with my grandmother, she was terminally ill and she had leg sores, to where the only way that would help her is to cut off her legs. So my family decided, it's one of those things to where she could live without legs, but what would her quality of life be? And she said, I just want to be kept in hospice until I naturally pass away, because the infection was eating at her legs and was starting to infect her organs. So I actually got to stand around the bed with my whole family as she was kept comfortable, and we were all able to watch her pass peacefully without the aid of any drugs or anything that could have altered her state. And in conclusion, the way I look at physician-assisted suicide is like, let's say you see somebody who has been shot on a street corner, and they're going to die. It's a fatal gunshot wound. Why would you go over to that person who is dying, who has that bullet wound and is going to die, and stab them just to make sure they die earlier? It's a waste of resources, and it's a waste of drugs, and it's kind of inhumane to kill people before their natural time is done on Earth. And thank you so much for listening.
Marco, what did you think?
I thought it was a really good topic. I like the subject of it. I think you were a little nervous at there because you kept on moving a lot, but it's understandable because it's a delicate subject to talk about. I like how you brought your own experience into it with your grandma, and I thought that was really, really good. And I thought your voice was projected well also, because I was able to hear you, and so I thought you did a really good job.
All right, well, I think you've got an interesting visualization at the beginning. It's very hypothetical. You define your subject and preview it very clearly. That part worked well. You're dependent, I think, a little bit on some hypothetical examples, and you make reference to a statistic at one point about Oregon, and I think that it's norming, and you mentioned that the rate has doubled each year. Make sure you give us source citations on that information. I'm not saying that it's not true or that I doubt it. I just saying, okay, so where's this information from? You had an example. You had some information that said 10% of the cases had some significant side effect or problem. And again, so what's your source on that? The story that you had of the husband who got violent and took a whack at his wife as he's supposedly finishing off his physician-assisted suicide. Again, I think we need to get a source on those particular things. that part of the argument, I think, suggests that there are, in fact, problems with this idea. The second and third parts, I think, are a little underdeveloped. There might be a legal issue to talk about here, but I think the reality is that legality and morality are often not the same thing, and that's where you need to be working on it rather than on, violates code. Well, I can't park my car on my front lawn either. That's against the law. But you know what? I don't think that's a moral use of government power to prevent me from parking on my damn front lawn. And I don't consider myself a criminal if I do so. So I think there are better arguments on those points. I like that you kind of went against the sort of trend on this argument. I just think you needed a stronger argument against that trend. All right. Thank you.